In this video, we're going to go through structuring a retirement plan if you are starting from zero and wanting to retire as quickly as possible. And for a lot of people, the thought of retirement is either something so far down the line that is irrelevant, or something so close it creates a lot of overwhelm that you're not too sure about what you should be doing moving forward. But to a lot of people's surprise, retiring early and having enough money to last is actually a lot easier to achieve than most people think. So we're also going to go through with how to achieve this with math involved. So the first thing we actually need to figure out is how much money we need each year to cover our expenses. Because most people say they want to retire early, but they have no idea what actually required financially to actually do so. And if you don't know that number, you can't build a plan around it. Before you actually jump into that number, I want you to think about something. Because to a lot of people, retirement might mean luxury holidays, fancy restaurants, spending as much time doing whatever you want, not having a care in the world. But for a lot of other people, it's a lot simpler than that. Retirement just simply means owning your own home, having free time to do things as you please, having enough money to cover your bills, spending more time with family and friends, and even just taking a holiday when and where you want to. But overall, it just means living life without financial stress. Because at the end of the day, money is just a tool, and it's not the goal to die with the largest investment portfolio in the bank. The real goal is to build a life you actually enjoy living. So once you actually know what that number is to cover the life you actually want to live, it makes building a plan a lot easier. So let's make this super simple. Imagine you own your house outright and you got a car completely paid off. What would it realistically cost you to live each year? Now for this, we're just going to use some round numbers. These aren't real life examples, it's just a number to make things simple. For food at home, let's say you need $10,000 a year. Utilities, rates, and insurances might just be another $5,000 a year. Maybe you spend $5,000 on a holiday, another $5,000 on eating out and entertainment, $5,000 on medical expenses, and maybe another $10,000 on just miscellaneous expenses, just random things. And already we're sitting at $40,000 a year. Now, for some people, that number might be $60,000, and for others, it might be $100,000. The number doesn't really matter, because each person's going to have their own individual number, and what's important is that you calculate your own. Because this is your freedom number, not anybody else's, your own. You need to figure out exactly what it's going to cost each year for all the expenses that you actually have in your life. Because one of the biggest fears people have when it comes to retirement is not understanding if they're going to have enough money saved or invested to actually cover their entire retirement years. And as a result, they might just run out of money too early, or they might have more money than they actually need. So now that we actually have our lifestyle cost number, we can actually work backwards and figure out how much money we actually need invested to actually fund that lifestyle. Now, a commonly used rule of thumb in the retirement planning world is a rule of 4%. The idea is not that your investments return 4% per year. The idea is that if retirees historically remove 4% of their portfolio each year, their savings should last them between 25 to 30 years without them running out of money. And it can be used as a starting point to figure out exactly how much you need to be invested to be able to last your entire retirement years. For example, if your lifestyle costs only $40,000 per year, divide that by 4% and you land at $1 million. If your lifestyle each year costs $80,000, divide that by 4% and you end up at $2 million. And if your lifestyle costs you $120,000 a year to maintain that kind of lifestyle throughout retirement, you would need $3 million invested. Now remember, investments typically return more than 4% per year, but that should give you a starting point of understanding how much money you're going to need invested so that you can actually have enough money to last you your entire retirement. And that 4% is just a conservative figure to actually understand how much you can retire without damaging your portfolio or running out of money. And that's why this first exercise is really important, because it gives you an understanding of how much money you need or what kind of lifestyle you want to live and how much it's going to cost you and what you need invested. And now that we actually have that number figured out, we can move on to the next question, which is how long do I actually have to get there? Because someone who's 20 trying to retire at 40 has a different game plan compared to someone who's 50 trying to retire at 60. And someone at 50, their idea of retirement is a lot more real than that person who's trying to retire at 20. And at this point, some people might actually get completely overwhelmed when they hear that number $2 million, because that is a large amount of money. But here's the thing which most people overlook. Retirement isn't built in just 1 year. It's a gradual compounding of invested funds over a period of time, which gets you to that invested capital to actually fund your retirement living. So instead of focusing on the total amount you actually need, let's start focusing on the time it's going to take to be able to get you to that retirement age. If you're 25 and want to retire at 50, you have 25 years. If you're 35 and want to retire at 50, you have 15 years. And if you're 45 wanting to retire at 55, you have 10 years. But ultimately, these all have the same destination, just different time frames and runways to actually get there. And as a result, they also need different strategies. And this is also why your timeline matters so much, because if you have more time, it means you have to contribute less out of your own pocket to be able to actually hit that number for retirement, which is actually one of the biggest advantages young investors have, is that they have a lot more time. Not necessarily intelligence, just time to let money compound for them. Now that you actually figured out your timeline, this then comes the next most important question, or the question everyone's waiting for. And that is, how much money do I have to invest each month to be able to hit that number? And this is where retirement stops being a dream and actually becomes a plan. So let's continue using the same example. Say your living expenses during retirement is going to be $80,000. This means you need $2 million invested. And say your roadmap to hit that $2 million is 20 years. And let's also assume that conservatively your annualized returns on your investments are 8%. Now I know for a lot of people say that their returns on investments actually are about 10-12%, but I just want to be conservative here and use a number of 8%, which is a little under that number. So if it fluctuates a bit, you're still covered and should be okay. Now, when people hear that number, $2 million, they immediately think they need to put away $2 million themselves. But that's not how investing works, because your money invested is actually doing the heavy lifting for you as it gets compounded by those returns annualized. So using those numbers and those assumptions we mentioned before, to be able to hit that $2 million in 20 years, you need to only invest $3,400 a month yourself. Now, before you panic, that's not the lesson. The lesson is, once you know the numbers, you can start addressing the variables. So if you need more time to get to that $2 million, either push your retirement back later, or maybe you need to adjust your retirement living lifestyle and drop it down to $60,000 per year instead. Or maybe you need to actually increase your income. Or maybe you need to invest more aggressively, which is not something I'd suggest if you're closer to retirement age than if you're younger. Because if you're younger, you got more time to actually make up for that number. But if you're older, you got a little bit less time and you want to be a little bit more conservative as well. Because retirement planning is really just a game of variables. You vary your income, you vary your spending, you vary your interest rates, you vary your timelines. And a change to any one or multiple of these things will change the actual outcome itself. And the biggest breakthrough most people have when they hear these numbers and this idea is that retirement is actually a lot more achievable than what people think, and they can actually have a sense of relief knowing their number is a lot easier to achieve and they will be safe during their retirement years. And the best part is that now that we actually know how much money we need to save or put away each month for ourselves to be able to retire comfortably with that number of $2 million, which we're using, keep it nice and simple, you can actually start doing more to be able to hit that. It might just mean budgeting more or spending less on frivolous things each day or each week, so you actually have a bit more money to be able to put towards your retirement. Or you might need to actually increase your income or find side hustles so that you can actually hit that number faster. This was something which I was able to do through property investing. I also have a stock portfolio and crypto trading and the rest of it, which has allowed me to be able to put myself in a position where I don't actually need to require or rely on a 9-to-5 income to maintain a standard of living. All because I understand these numbers and I broke it down in a very easy, simple way of understanding what I need to have invested, what dividends I'm getting, how much growth I'm having, and all those. And then if my returns aren't as matches up, I just adjust my spending to drop it down a little bit, and I can still live a comfortable life where I get to socialize with my friends, go out for dinners, coffees, and things like that, without having to go to that 9-to-5. Now, when I said you want to have your money invested in things that actually create wealth for yourself, you want to be able to buy assets which actually generate an income. Now, one of the easiest things for that is actually an index fund, which typically has been recorded as returning 10% per annum. You get the idea. You want to have money working for you. You can either buy, like I said, the index fund, which is the stock market, or you can look at even property where you can actually have a rental return. The return on that might be slightly different. You have to understand those numbers as well of what's invested, what are ongoing expenses, and what the return is as well for that. Or other assets like businesses as well, or social media where you can actually leverage the use of the platform to actually generate an audience and generate an income through that as well, which might be something you can actually do for yourself. And that can actually supplement your lifestyle, your retirement lifestyle in a way that your retirement savings might not be able to. But the idea is that your money is actually working for you, generating a return so that you don't actually have to invest as much money out of your own pocket to be able to hit that target of, say, $2 million or $3 million, all depending on what kind of lifestyle you want for your retirement. And if you actually want to accelerate this time frame, so you're reducing it from 20 years down to 10, you want to be more aggressive. So that means you might need to be more aggressive with the way you're saving, how much money you're earning, or what kind of return you're actually getting on your investment, or what kind of things you're doing on the side to earn extra income. Now, a lot of people who have done this when they were younger, they've been able to generate significant amounts of income and wealth through side hustles of social media, digital businesses, e-commerce, things like that, where they can then take that capital, park it in a wealth generating instrument like the index fund of the stock market, or property, which goes up in value over time. Then they get to accept that that return on that investment is generating them wealth, which will set them up for retirement, so they don't actually have to work in their later years. But like I said, if you want to accelerate this timeline, you actually have to actively invest, aggressively save, and look at ways of actually increasing your income to be able to take that timeline from, say, 20 years to 10 years or even less, so you can then enjoy a more free way of living. Now, if you've got money invested in things like Roth IRAs or superannuation here in Australia, you don't actually get to touch that until you hit a certain retirement age. Here in Australia, it's 55 years before you get to touch some of that. Or I think they may have changed it to 60 years now, but irrelevant. At the end of the day, those investment or those retirement investment strategies have certain rules around them, which means you might not be able to actually access that money to a later date, but at the same time, it protects you from drawing down on it too early, where you don't actually have the funds working for you to increase your wealth so you can actually enjoy a comfortable retirement. So that's basically the framework of how you can actually start from zero and get to a comfortable amount of money so you can retire and live comfortably without too much effort. So first, you actually want to know what your retirement looks like to you, how much money you're going to be spending, how much money you're going to need per year. Then you work backwards and figure out how much money you actually have to have invested so you can draw down 4% of that allocation without actually disturbing the capital. So you get a much longer period of time that you can actually enjoy living without having to work or stress. Then you got to figure out where you actually want to put the money and how that money is going to be invested to actually return. Then you want to figure out how long you actually got until you actually want to retire. So then you can figure out how much money you need to be putting away each month so that you can actually hit that target comfortably. Then if you actually want to accelerate that time frame, you just got to adjust the variables to be able to hit that target either sooner or later, depending on what's comfortable for you. Because at the end of the day, retirement or investing and living comfortably is actually just a numbers game, and it's all basically maths. Once you understand the maths, once you understand the numbers behind it, it all becomes a lot easier. So I hope that's been useful for you. And don't forget, I'm going to be dropping a lot more videos like this, so be sure to follow along. And if you found value in this video, give it a like, and I'll catch you again next time. Peace.